Battery Bill. Battery Bill. For cameras, computers, cars, or scooters. For trucks, boats, jet skis, remotes. Battery Bill. Battery Bill.
All right, how's it going, everybody? We welcome you to episode 54 here on Hawaii Football Now. A big mahalo to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill, latest to jump on board here on HFN. Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, originally opened in 1936 as a credit union for educators. Hawaii USA has inspired a culture of giving that is rooted in education and has since become Hawaii's largest credit union and expanding to other areas of community need that impact financial health, including healthcare, housing, and hunger. To learn more, please visit hawaiiusafcu.com. All right, Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes back with you for another week on Hawaii Football Now. We record this Tuesday about 1:10 p.m. Hawaii time, as we're all set to release this in a couple of days' time on Thursday, September 8th. All right, before we dive into the details, Hawaii falling to 0-2. Another lopsided loss, this time at the hands of Western Kentucky, 49-17, the final in that one. Quick little opening drive. I just wanted to send a little shout out to the broadcast team here. It was kind of fun. We don't always get to see each other all that much. We record from different locations. Our guy, Jaren Kabashigawa, our producer, is in a third location. And it was nice to see you boys on Saturday, albeit, a little rough going. Although the time we got together was the first half. There was a little more optimism.
Yeah, guaranteed. We kind of set up shop over in the east end zone on the UH sideline, and front row seats for a lot of the action. Like when that Western Kentucky receiver got knocked out cold, that was right in front of me and Jordan. Jaren's there taking tons of pictures, which is always fun. Cheesing it up for the gram.
No doubt. You can check all of Jaren's work as well on the ESPN Honolulu social platforms as we go through it. That'll keep you updated throughout the games and leading up to each weekend's contest as well. All right, quick game time here. Another rough one. 49-17, we mentioned the loss to Western Kentucky this past Saturday. They actually led it 3-0. Hawaii did after the first quarter, trailed 21-10 at halftime for the second week in a row, coincidentally. And then were outscored 28-7. In the second half, which has become a theme. Joey Yellen got the start after coming on in relief in game one. That role was kind of reversed as Yellen went one quarter, and then Braden Shager came in to start the second quarter, and then basically went the rest of the way. We did see a little bit of a cameo from Cameron Cooper, who came in situationally to run a little speed option look, actually led to a touchdown. Second halves have not been kind, as we mentioned. Through two games, 49-20, the aggregate score in the first half, both times, 21-10 down. In two first halves that I think Hawaii felt like probably should have been closer, right? The Vanderbilt fumble, return for a touchdown kind of led to that spread in the first game. And then last week, missed opportunity right after a botched punt early in the ball game. Hawaii settles for 3 instead of 7. And so, different stories there. But the second half undeniably has been abysmal. They've now outscored 70-7 in the second half combined over the first two games. Some of the numbers, when you look at it from a team standpoint, total offense, Western Kentucky, 412 yards. That is kind of their MO. They've always been a strong offensive team. Austin Reed was a terrific quarterback. Really impressed with the West Florida transfer. University of Hawaii limited to 360 yards total offense. Passing-wise, West Virginia, 271 through the air, 241 on the ground. Pretty balanced there. They also had a defensive score for a touchdown that came in the first half as well. So again, Hawaii kind of, shooting themselves in the foot, even though within reach. And then for Hawaii, 266 through the air, 94 on the ground. The other big, I think, numbers that we'll focus on here, 6 total turnovers for the University of Hawaii, 5 interceptions, 1 fumble, of course, the 1 pick six as well on a just, kind of a cataclysmic screen pass from Braden Shager. Hawaii also 12 penalties for 109 yards. And so it hasn't been smooth sailing for much of the season outside of the opening possession offensively for Hawaii to start 2022. Everything seems to be kind of difficult. And then on top of that, they've turned the ball over far too much. They haven't taken the ball away very much as well. And then penalties, and Coach Chang was very, I think, candid about that after the game and saying, hey, 12 penalties, 6 turnovers. Like you're just not going to win very many football games doing that.
Yeah, it was an ugly brand of football, Jordan. And kind of across the board, it felt like some of our situational football, our awareness, some nuts and bolts that makes a winning football team tick, just wasn't there. I didn't see as much discipline from certain position groups that we did in week one. I thought the offensive line did fantastic against Vandy. I can't really say that, albeit that Stephen Bernal Wint, our right guard, got hurt. So not having him at right guard kind of cost us. And Western Kentucky kind of blitzed the crap out of us right up the gut for the majority of the game. So whatever QB was in there was kind of on our heels. I want to tip my cap to our defense, though. Holding them under 450, this high-powered offense that we saw a lot of great athletes on Western Kentucky. And UH is small, just with what we've had to deal with from a recruiting standpoint. It's tough to make lemonade sometimes. And it seems like we've been dealt a hand of lemons kind of across the board, whether it be first-time coaches at the Division I level, the majority of our roster being put together through the transfer portal, 53 new players on our roster in total. It's a steep uphill climb to begin this year, with 3 very good out of conference opponents with Vandy, Western Kentucky, and then obviously Michigan this coming week. It's a tall task to start the year, Jordan.
It is. And I think, the improvement that folks were hoping to see from week 1 to week 2, showcased in some areas, it maybe not. I'm with you. I thought the defense, we saw some adjustments. We saw them play a little better. There were fewer missed tackles, albeit there's still a lot of room for improvement there, but it is an undersized group. And when you look at it, the defensive backfield are some of the leading tacklers, right? Panay Pavihi has been the leading tackler through 2 games. He and Isaiah Tufanga, the 2 middle linebackers, for the most part, have been there. Maybe not Darius Muasal where they're averaging 10 tackles a game or anything like that. Pavihi had 6 tackles again this past week. Tufanga had 4. But then we're talking about the rest of the leading tacklers have been defensive backs. JoJo Forrest and Leonard Lee had 5. Lee is starting safety. Matangi Thompson, the other starting safety, had 4. Noah Kamana, who came in, the Punahou graduate, another local boy, had 4 tackles. Malik Hausman had himself a decent game, 3 tackles, 1 interception. And so, they've given up a lot of points. Defenses or opposing teams have also scored 3 touchdowns through 2 games on our offense, basically. But they've kept Hawaii around. Right? The first 2 weeks. And then things, you can only ask for so much, right? We saw a few more snaps from guys like Meki Pei in the defensive backfield. Up front, we saw Ezra Iwaimalu worked in a little bit more, Andrew Choi as well. Because I think the one thing for the defense, and I think this is also true for the offense, there has been a lack of explosive play, right? This defense is held. It's been a lot of bend but don't break. But they've only taken the football away once through 8 quarters, and that was the Hausman interception. The other turnover that Hawaii took advantage of was the botched punt, right? The basically the first possession of the ball game that it landed up to 3 points. But 3 tackles for loss through 2 games, all 3 of them against Western Kentucky. 5 quarterback hurries, I believe, was the official statistic. Again, most of those coming against Western Kentucky. 0 sacks through 2 games. So they've been unable to produce the big play. They've been unable to have teams play from behind the chains. Right, 3 tackles for loss through 2 games. So at worst, unless it's a penalty, that opponent is playing 1st and 10, 2nd and less than 10, 3rd and less than 5, right? And so it's been tough. And then you can kind of say the same thing offensively, where there's just been a lack of explosive play. And I think, to your point, Hunter, without that threat, Western Kentucky was able to just get after the quarterback, whether it was Yellen or Shager. The offensive line, I thought, took a step backwards, and you point out some fair points with injuries and whatnot, but they weren't as good as they were against Vanderbilt,
No.
right? I think that's fair to say. El Manning played about as poorly as I've ever seen him play. Got beat for a sack, had 3 or 4 penalties against him. And look, I'd expect a guy who's a 4-year starter, that won't be the norm. I think that was the outlier of a type of game. But they only ran for 2.7 yards per carry. There wasn't a whole lot doing there. They were able to kind of sit on that. No running threat from the quarterback makes that a little bit easier. But there hasn't been anybody to stretch over the top. Zion Bowen's injury doesn't help. Jonah Pinocchio playing through a bit of a knock as well doesn't help. But there haven't been a whole lot of big plays, right? There haven't been a whole lot of, I wouldn't say easy plays, but simple plays that kind of open things up, right? There's been a lack. Every single snap seems really difficult.
Yes.
Right. It seems like every snap is a grind, right? There isn't a simple, hey, we're going to throw it out for a quick screen and we're going to gain 8 yards. Like, there hadn't been a whole lot of that. Every down seems to be, okay, we got third down again, right? They haven't been they've been able to put together some long drives, but they've been struggles, I guess, when they go through it, right? There haven't been a whole lot of, hey, 3 first downs in 4 plays type of sequences. It's just been rough out there. And so, I don't know if that's scheme. I don't know if that's more personnel. Probably a combination, but I don't. Your observations, Hunter. I'm kind of curious to get your take on it, because it just seems like, everything's uphill. Everything seems to be a little more difficult than it should, and definitely way more difficult than you'd want it to be. On both sides of the ball, probably offense more than defense. But that was one of the striking things after watching Saturday's game.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too soon to make this, but it felt like we were struggling to breathe and on a ventilator with pretty much every play, whether it be on offense or defense, just struggling to keep anything going. It felt like, if you were to deem them extraordinary plays, Jordan, we talked about this after the game, it was when one of our quarterbacks would escape from the pocket and then kind of miraculously throw across his body to the middle of the field to a receiver that did well in the scramble drill to come back to the football, which from a quarterback's perspective, everyone listening at home, is the biggest no-no. You are not supposed to throw across your body across the middle of the field. That's literally what caused Brett Favre half of his interceptions in his career, but I digress. A big part of what I'm seeing, Jordan, is just, I feel like we're doing the best with what we have right now. As much of a bummer as that is to say, we can hope for more. We can wish for more, but it's going to kind of be the tale of the season, I think, is us kind of rolling with the punches and putting one foot in front of the other, whatever that looks like. I was at practice this morning and was communicating to the guys that, hey, we're really focused on conference right now, just trying to keep the guys looking forward ahead to, we're going to see what kind of a football team we are when we play other Mountain West schools. Because anytime UH begins the year, we're going to play a big time out of conference opponent, because UH is in the position where we need money from these schools. And so Mr. Matlin positions our schedule to strategize our program in that fashion. But come Mountain West time, we'll see what we're made of, both on the defense and offensive side of the football.
Yeah, that's the caveat here, right? Obviously, you want to get to 7 wins. You want to get to a bowl game. That's a huge bonus for the program, the extra practices, the money that comes with it, the exposure, everything. But the other factor is, look, conference, you're trying to win a conference championship, right? You're trying to get to a position where you're playing for championships. And so, yeah, they've got 3 more weeks until they get into conference play. I think that should be the priority. I think that breaks up the schedule kind of nicely as well when it comes to developing individuals, developing scheme, for a program that everything is so new and fresh. Getting to that point, I think, is imperative.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of ties into the quarterback conversation, right?
Big time.
how do you, and so to kind of set up the question a little bit for you, Hunter, here, right? The Joey Yellen got the start last week. It was Braden Shager in week 0. They kind of flip-flopped those roles. It kind of seemed like, it was maybe half and half like it was last week. But Yellen just didn't play very well at all in the first quarter, and they ended up making the move at the end of the first period. And by the start of the second period, it was Braden Shager in there.
Yeah.
Yellen went 4 of 11, 36 yards, 1 interception. I think at one point he had gone 14 straight incompletions, dating back to the end of his appearance against Vandy to the start of the game here against Western Kentucky. And it was kind of perplexing as well, because he also started with 9 of 10 or something like that against Vanderbilt. When he came in, it's like, all right, hey, things are moving. All right, let's go. But he didn't look confident or comfortable out there. And I think it made sense to make the move while he was still very much in the game. Braden Shager, 22 of 33, 238 yards, 4 interceptions. Yellen, threw the 1 interception against Western Kentucky. Shager's 2 interceptions, terrible decisions. I mean, really bad decisions. The other 2 interceptions, unlucky, balls bouncing off a receiver's hands, to kind of put that in perspective. But I will say, just based off my observations, Shager seems to be the guy who is just more comfortable operating out there. He is a guy who is capable of making more throws, different types of throws. I think he is the guy that has shown to move the offense the best so far. And so how do you assess those 2 guys, how we move forward here, and what the best course of action really is for the offense and for the team?
Yeah, it's the coaches have their hands full right now with the personnel and the skill set that our team provides right now. I ran into 3 of Joey Yellen's high school teammates after the game, and we were talking, and they told me just straight up, Joey doesn't look comfortable back there. And I would completely agree. Put, talent, ability aside, he doesn't look like he's in the right headspace whenever he's out there playing football for us. Whenever Shager is in there, it feels like we can at least string a few plays together. And if the play calling is right, if the offensive line handles their job, if there's some inspirational running, like what we saw from Lille in the second half, then we can start to kind of put the pieces together to build a drive. Maybe spark in there Cam and Cooper every once in a while too for that speed option, which was a great call in my opinion to get us our first score in the first half. But it's almost similar to how they're handling the running backs, where Diedrich will be in there for a while. They'll put in Lille, and then obviously we saw Jordan Johnson in the second half too, where it's kind of, hey, who's got fresh legs, who's ready to go? We're going to use you guys. Now the trouble with that, from a quarterback perspective, it's very difficult to flow into a rhythm if you are constantly shifting guys in and out. I spoke with Jonah Pinoque earlier this week, and he talked about having more of a chemistry with certain guys than others, and that's something to consider as well, because you hang out with different guys, you spend more time in the off season getting throws in, and not everyone's going to have the same sort of innate I'm going here, put the ball over there that you need to play Division I football between quarterbacks and receivers. So, man, I give Timmy and Coach Ursua and Coach Shoemaker a lot of credit, and honestly a lot of prayer right now, because they're trying to figure it out as best they can.
Yeah, and so we've I think the criticism of the offense, a lot of it's probably fair, right? It hasn't looked great early on. Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with personnel. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're shuffling quarterbacks. And so, I think at some point you've got to settle on a guy, right? You've got to, just because you touched on this, offense is all about rhythm and consistency, and just having that comfort, and you got to economize reps, right? There's only so many hours you can practice during the week. There are only so many snaps you can get in those hours. And you need maximize that, and at some point you need one of those guys to get the majority of those reps, because it does look like it's a lot of work
Yeah.
to get this thing going. And so the other thing that I think kind of factors into all of this is the fact that you're playing Michigan on Saturday. And so as much as
number 4, by the way,
right,
now.
number 4, Michigan, who's a 51-point favorite. We'll get into that a little bit in the second half here.
Whew.
As much as I am on board with a pick a guy, got to move forward.
Yeah.
The odds are against Michigan, the score would probably allow you to play multiple guys, right?
Time.
I mean, just realistically evaluating it, if you're kind of looking at it, trying to be as objective as possible, that's not necessarily what needs to be broadcast to the team or anything like that. But if you're planning from a coaching standpoint or whatnot, like, you'll probably get an opportunity to play multiple guys on Saturday, just being really realistic. And so how do you go about doing that, right? Is it, hey, we're committing to a guy, but we're also still going to give a look for, say, it's Yellen. I think some folks have been a little surprised that maybe we haven't seen a third guy get more reps. Obviously, we had the Cooper cameo. But there have been folks, I mean, I've run into folks, and we got one of our guys, Carl, commenting on our YouTube video from last week as well. It's say, hey, should Cooper get a little bit more of a run, right? And so what I would infer, based on the fact that, hey, look, those two guys are the only ones that have gotten reps right in the game through the first 2 games, Shager and Yelly. I was a little surprised, but maybe we didn't see a little more of Cooper maybe late against Western Kentucky just based on the score. But that would lead me to believe that the coaching staff has really narrowed this down to 2 guys. Yeah. And that's why we've only really seen those 2 guys through the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Hunter.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with you. I think that we have a good enough sample size now with both Shager and Yellen that I'm not 100% certain we would see like a massive jolt in their performance from what I'm looking at right here. So I hate to say this, but how much worse can it get than the last 2 games? Give some other guys a chance and see if they have the leadership ability, they have the playmaking ability, a spark. It's clear that this team lacks leadership across the board from a player's perspective. And it's, I mean, I'm down on the sideline, Jordan. It's kind of an uninspired, dull team environment when I'm down and around, especially when the offense is out there. It feels like the defense is just kind of sucking down as much water and air that they can until they're needed back on the field. And so, yeah, give some other guys a chance if they're healthy. I thought Jake Farrell had a fantastic spring. They even, in college football, it's their version of the franchise tag. They gave him a full ride scholarship, and he was a walk-on before that. Another guy, I talk about him all the time, Armani Eden, a fantastic dual threat option for us that, given some of the play calling, I'd like to see them play someone like himself or Cameron Cooper with some running ability to keep that defensive end from crashing into our quarterback running back mesh and blowing the play up pretty much every snap of the football. So I see they need to look at the season 2 halves. The first half being non-conference, looking towards Duquesne. Obviously, Michigan's going to happen, but Duquesne's our homecoming game. We need to win that one heading into conference and kind of figure out what team we have heading into conference in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, and so, I think there are other aspects of the offense too, right, that they could see some tweaking perhaps, right? And again, maybe arguably your 2 best receivers in Pinokia and Bowens being banged up don't help. But we saw Dedrick Parson, not one of his more productive games in a University of Hawaii uniform. And I don't know how much of that was really on him, just kind of running into the teeth of the defense. 15 carries, 29 yards for Parson in that game, 1 touchdown. He averaged less than 2 yards per carry. He did have 4 catches for 27 yards. Najee Bryant-Lille, I thought, another strong showing by him, 13 carries, 64 yards. He did have the touchdown, averaged about 5 yards per carry. And again, in tandem with what what we felt the offensive line maybe not playing great. But those two guys, I think, are similar type runners, right? Tough between the tackles, not burner speed, but very, very capable backs.
Yep.
And so I think, and this was something that I had my eye on, but we didn't see a whole lot of snaps for Tylan Hines and Jordan Johnson. Jordan Johnson, no carries, but he did have 2 receptions for 26 yards. Those 2 freshman running backs out of the Texas area. And maybe just a little something there, right? A little change up. And I don't know what the plan is for those 2 guys in terms of how they want to use their eligibility and all that kind of stuff, and how they've sort of budgeted their appearances. That could factor in as well. But, just something a little different in the backfield, a little change up to complement what I think is some tough power running by Parson and Bryant Lele. And then receiving wise, we had 10 different guys catch a pass to the University of Hawaii. And I think Hines was targeted once. I think 11 different guys were targeted in the ball game. Jalen Walthall had 4 catches, 53 yards. Pinokia, 2 catches, 32 yards. Caleb Phillips, the tight end, 3 catches, 30 yards. Jordan Johnson, 2 catches, 26 yards. James Phillips, 3 catches, 22 yards. Jordan Murray, 3 catches, 22 yards. Dior Scott, 3 catches, 18 yards. Very similar, similar productions. Chucky Hines had 1 catch, 16 yards. Tamatoa Mokiao Atimalala, 1 catch, 13 yards. And so not too many explosive plays there. Nobody really caught the lion's share of things. I guess my question, kind of like the quarterback situation, right? You're kind of trying to narrow it down, trying to zero in on a guy, trying to find a guy. Receiving wise, right? It's sort of a revolving door. They're trying to find maybe somebody who go out and get the job done. It's kind of cool that 11 guys were targeted, 10 different guys caught a pass, but is that too many? Like, it does do things, right? And I get it. We're kind of spoiled with the whole run and shoot mindset where, hey, you really kind of have a core of 4 or 5 guys, right? Yeah. Not saying it has to look like that, but it's a whole lot of the same in terms of production so far.
Yeah, I think it's pretty telling of what style of an offense we're running. And there's a lot of screen passes. There's a lot of short, quick ones to the outside. And a lot of that has to do with, like, this past week, not having a lot of time back there. It felt like Yellen and Shager were forced out of the pocket. If not every drop back, it felt like every other drop back. And it's going to be very difficult to move the ball down the field in the air if you're kind of forced to do that. So, with all these guys getting reps, getting opportunities, it shows that not one guy is reliant for our team to win. But those numbers need to just be higher, Jordan, at least from just a couple guys. So, again, we're about to play one of the best teams in the entire country this week. Coach Chang was talking about, at practice today, about this is the standard: catching footballs outside of your body, not letting it hit your pads, securing the ball on the outside hand, high and tight, no fumbles. So they're in the process right now, I think, of communicating culture and expectations to their guys across the board to try to build a winning culture with our team.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that kind of translates, over the next couple of weeks, with the big Michigan game, obviously, and then Duquesne on the horizon, right, which is a different caliber of opponent, to be quite frank. Last question here before we hit the halftime, Hunter. With all that being said on the offensive side, and kind of deciphering what that offense, or what Coach Shoemaker and that offense have in mind, what should this offense look like for you in terms of trying to maximize success? And we've gone over some of the shortcomings, if you will, some of the challenges, just based off of everything, all the different factors. But it is what it is, right? At some point, you got to be able to put points on the board. You got to be able to sustain drives and contribute to winning football. So in your mind, what should this offense start looking like?
Well, you're in Hawaii. It should look a little like the run and shoot. Obviously, we can't fully commit to the run and shoot with the personnel that we have right now, but very similar whenever Rolo took over for Chow, we couldn't fully commit to it either with the personnel that we had. However, we used some of the RPO action in the backfield to open up run and shoot schemes on the outside. And the run and shoot isn't just about throwing long touchdowns. It's about separating space on the outside for receivers and making reads on the fly. So undersized, under speed receivers can get open against bigger, better defenses. So in my mind, what I'm seeing from our team right now, maybe not fully commit to the run and shoot, but start to introduce some schemes on the outside to cut your offensive line a little bit of a break, because you can get the ball out of your hands quickly. You can move the chains quickly, and do it with, in some ways, little to no effort. So I would like to see some of that before the end of the year, Jordan.
Yeah, and I think the next 3 weeks will be a good gauge. And we talked about the first 5 games as a block heading into the conference, but I think these next 3 games in particular, because after Michigan, right, these first 3 considerably better than Duquesne and New Mexico State. No disrespect to those 2 programs, but it's just a different caliber of opponent and a chance maybe to gauge yourself in a different way. All right, that'll do it for us here on the first half. We'll get into Michigan talk when we return. Second half coming up here, episode 54 of Hawaii Football Now.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second halftime here on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan and Hunter back with you. Time to turn the page, look ahead to Michigan. The Wolverines up to number 4 this week in the AP poll. They were 8 last week. No slouch. 51-7 winners a week ago against Colorado State in their season opener. They led that one 44-0. Colorado State got on the board with about 9 minutes left in the game. Things got rolling early on with Roman Wilson's 61-yard lightning bolt of a catch and run to get the scoring started. Of course, folks will remember Roman Wilson, the Kihei native, St. Louis graduate. He's been doing it for a few years now up there in Ann Arbor. Michigan actually played 3 quarterbacks. Started Cade McNamara, and the plan going into the season was basically McNamara in game 1, J.J. McCarthy in game 2. Jim Harbaugh saying that he is sticking with that. So J.J. McCarthy, the expected starter on Saturday against the Bows. McNamara called Harbaugh's announced plan unusual and unexpected. Harbaugh's cited scripture as part of the reason for envisioning this whole thing. It's been a little weird.
Yikes.
Don't get me wrong. Either way, both guys are pretty good. I'll just put that out there. McCarthy can really scoot. Michigan ran for 234 yards. They didn't. I think they threw with a 1 touchdown pass. That was it. The rest came on the ground. They're good. They're big. They're Big Ten. They're top 5 in the country. They're coming off of a college football playoff berth and a Big Ten championship a year ago. We all know kind of the path ahead. 2 p.m. Hawaii time kickoff. That'll be on Big Ten Network. Television-wise, of course, you can catch it with the Veneri brothers on ESPN Honolulu, covering you on the radio side as well. Look, depending on where you looked, Hawaii opened as roughly a 50-point underdog. Currently, as we check this, Hawaii a 51-point underdog in this ball game. That's quite big. That's sizable. UH 0-3 all time against Michigan 1998, you'll remember, 86, and then, of course, 6 years ago, a 63-3 loss in Ann Arbor that first year of Rolo. Stiffest step to the season. There's no doubt about that. Under what kind of opportunity is this, though, for the program? Hawaii reportedly receiving about $1.9 million to go play in this game.
It lends itself for a few reasons. At practice today, they had fan noise playing on loud as the speaker could go. And so the guys were practicing silent count the whole time during practice, which we're usually not in that situation as a team unless, it gets really rowdy in Vegas or really rowdy in Fresno, perhaps. That for these guys that are hoping or have aspirations to get to the next level, playing under something like the silent count is something unique that you get to play in front of the big house. I remember whenever we were on the team in 2016, we played against Jabril Peppers, who almost won the Heisman that year. It lends you an opportunity to play in front of the biggest stage in all of college football. You're going to be seen by many people. Chances are we're not going to come away with a dub here, but it doesn't mean you can't have a fantastic highlight against one of the best teams in the country. I tell the guys all the time, it's a chance for pictures and a chance for yourself to be known. Similar team to what we had in 2016 as well. We, started off at 0-2. One of our best players was our kicker and our punter, Rigo Sanchez, who later went on to get drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. Mac, Shipley is a very similar style of a kicker, in my opinion. And he got on the board for us back in 2016 at the Big House. So you can still piece together a highlight or two, and it's not a complete wash for us. And in my opinion, there aren't many places better than playing in the Big House. So there's that.
Yeah, it's under the lights too. It'll be a night game out there in Ann Arbor, which isn't the norm, right? I mean, they've played quite a few over the years, but the vast majority of games throughout history at the University of Michigan have been day games. So that'll be pretty cool as well. National television on the Big Ten Network. What does Hawaii need to get out of this game, right? Do they need to absolutely know who the quarterback is going to be? Do we need to see some changes on offense? Like what is sort of the realistic expectation in terms of bettering this program, this team against this kind of opponent?
This will be the first road game that this team has experienced together. I would love for them to come back with, a sense of unity, a sense of togetherness, that maybe a newfound energy, even after, Michigan does what they're going to do. It doesn't mean that has to affect who we are in here. I was at practice today, Jordan. I wanted to get to this story. Timmy came over to me and goes, "Hey, what's that underneath the scissor lift?" The scissor lift is where the cameras situate themselves on the 50 to record practice. And there was a dead black cat, okay, underneath the scissor ladder that has, the camera up on top. So I don't know how much more of a bad omen you could write up, Jordan, for our team with that being right next to the players. But this is an opportunity for us as a core group on the team that this is what I would be communicating to the guys, to us internally. Turn the script, get some good vibes going for us, even if it's just having a great time on the road. No one's gonna come in between my love for the guy next to me in the locker room. That stuff can be accomplished in a road trip like what we have here, and that's what I would be communicating to the guys all week.
Yeah, I mean, we're Cubs fans, Black Cats. They have a little bit of a lore. But maybe it's a kind of a nice little reverse thing, right? Hawaii's being a little snake bitten, some tipped passes for touchdowns, like fumbles going right into guys in stride for returns the other way. Maybe it'll flip the script a little bit.
That's right. We're still, we're not dead yet.
No. I mean, they got 11 games left on the season. There's a lot in front of this group, and we'll see how it goes. This Michigan team. And we'll see how much we can extrapolate out of that. But I do think this stretch here in the next 3 weeks going to be big for this program, regardless of the win total. But you're going to want to see a little more consistency from some different position groups as well. All right, getting into some of the comments. I already mentioned Carl, who dropped the line about Cameron Cooper earlier. Shout out to some of the regulars as well. Ian, James, K-Love. On the comments, we had a guy, Superhero Fan 1996, his handle on YouTube. Love it. We had 17 comments, Hunter, which is a new high for us, I believe, on last week's video. James, mentioning the 17,000 seat expansion to 17,000 seats for next year that is planned and has been budgeted by the Board of Regents. He's saying better late than never, right, which is always kind of an interesting topic. But our guy Al from VA, man, he had a recap of like everybody who transferred from the University of Hawaii, some of the commits that decommitted and are now at other schools from the University of Hawaii. It's a long and extensive list, and we don't have the time for it within our allotted, record time. But if you go check out last week's episode, he broke it down. So kudos to Al there. He brought up some of the other guys, right? We talked about Kuali Nishigai kind of bouncing back from injury. You mentioned guys like Stephen Feast. So we started to see some different faces in week 2, on defense, I think a little bit more than offense, but it's something to keep our eye on, I think, as we go throughout the season, right? Different guys emerging, maybe getting opportunities that we didn't see. If you kind of take the coaches at their word, it is an ongoing evaluation process. And so I think the thing that I can say is just, hey, we might see some of these guys and some of the other players, some guys that have come in and, not that in recent weeks as well, to join the program. And there are names, I'm sure, that we haven't heard a lot through the first 2 weeks that'll probably feature as the season goes on.
Oh yeah, big time. And even for us, Jordan, I mentioned you on the sideline. There's still a lot of guys that I'm anxiously wanting to get to know, see what they can do on the field. I'm sure the coaches feel the same way. And nonetheless, it's our team. It's still Hawaii. They're proudly wearing the H on the helmet, Hawaii across the chest. They're defending us as much as they can. And we got to support them regardless, because like it or not, they are our team and they deserve our respect. So long season ahead of us and a lot of good stuff still in front of us. I truly believe that.
Yeah, it's going to be, you're right. It is a long season ahead. All right, that'll kind of do it for us here on episode 54. Quick little overtime. It was Champions Night at TC Ching this past weekend, which I thought was really cool. And they basically honored, the University of Hawaii honored every single national championship team or individual throughout like their athletic program's history, including obviously the 4 Rainbow Wahine volleyball titles, the back-to-back men's volleyball championship, some of the others mixed in there as well. Some of the individual sport champions, some of the sailing teams of years past. It was cool. They got the Honolulu Little Leaguers in there as well, which may have been like the loudest cheer of the night. They got a standing ovation from the sold out crowd there. But the other cool one, and you got to go back a ways, and I wish I wrote down the 2 gentlemen's names because we were just kind of standing there fieldside. But the 2 boxing champions that Hawaii has, which is not an NCAA sport, but by the sanctioning body, they're 2 boxing national champs that Hawaii's had. One went on to be a doctor. The other one went on to be like a renowned economist. And I just thought that was great. It's like, our 2 boxing champions, by the way, also doctor, economists. That's how they do it at the University of Hawaii.
Which speaks to the fact that they probably didn't get hit in the head too many times, that they still had a brain afterwards.
No way, smooth, man, smooth.
Yeah, smooth with the jabs. I love it.
That's right. Yeah. They made it out all right. Made it out all right. I just thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to slide that in there. And if anybody in the comments is like, these idiots, it's so and so and so and so, feel free to drop the names. I apologize again that I did not write that down. I should probably follow up on that. All right, that'll do it for us here. Again, big mahalo to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill. Big mahalo to our guy Jaron on the controls. To you, Hunter, always fun talking story. And we got Michigan coming up this weekend, and we'll break it all down next week when we see you back here on Hawaii Football Now. Aloha, everybody.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.